Hi, welcome to another episode of the Burning Desire Show. It's been a while, so apologies for that, but I think this guest hopefully is worth waiting for, which is Tawfeeq Babu. Babu?
Correct. Yeah, perfect, Charles.
Perfect, perfect. Or more commonly known as Taf. And it's interesting, and I think we'll probably pick up on it. One of the way or how Taf and I come into contact is through my frequenting 20 stories in Manchester.
Yes.
And Taff just like always like perfectly poised in his suit just outside like holding fort at the door and doing a great job. And then literally this has been for months and months. And then I was interested in getting some security for the family store. Asked who I didn't realize at the time was one of his colleagues, and then she rocks up and he's in tow, and I'm like, "What's going on here? Like some ambush?" And then which is really interesting. And then to find out that Tav has this company that we'll get on to soon. But I think the thing which resonates with me, and I mentioned this just before we start recording, is so often today everyone's shouting about what they do. And it's refreshing.
Yeah.
I think everyone that knows you will know this, that you're so understated that you just don't even know. You just do your thing and it just
Bless you.
works perfectly. You know what I
Bless
mean?
you. Thank you. Bless you. Thank you.
But it's true, and like we'll get to in a minute. But like people think, and I think this is where you've got this like unique selling point that just can't be touched, which is the person standing at that door is so important to the establishment in terms of the clientele, the let's be honest, the ratio of guys to girls, which is very important in bars, is what it is. Like
It's true. And I think especially, for the fact that going out is such an occasional thing for some people, and even if it isn't, it's part of your routine, it's part of your lifestyle. You want it to contribute to your overall vibe, your enjoyment, etc. I think people overlook how important good, dependable, welcoming security is. It's
it's true.
I remember reading there was an experiment done probably by Stanford or Brown University. It's usually where most social behavior experiments tend to be from. But it was they took a group and they put their hands into cold water for a set time, right? And what they did with the second group is they took their hand and put their hand in the same cold water, but they added warm water at the end. And what they found is even when people have their hand in cold water for a longer time, they'd still rather have the finish with the warm water. And what my point is with that is that your touch points in the guest experience is so important. And the first part is that welcoming face on the door, that welcoming face when you come into reception, that front of house, that first waiter that asks you, can I take your coat? Can I take your bag from you? These things that you say, are understated, actually accumulate to so much of how we perceive a particular venue, a particular establishment. You'll know it as well from, you building your client base and the rapport and client relationships that you have. But these little things are massively important. And I think they really accrued to the relationship that me and you now have, that small
Sure.
talk, that how are you? How are you doing, Charles? Sorry, what is your name? Charles, nice to meet you.
Yes.
My name's Taff, and having that conversation from there. And I think it's very easy in modern life to kind of overlook those small human interactions, especially as we're all in such a rush to go to whatever destination we've set in our head.
It's true. It's true. So we will definitely come back to what you do currently, but I mentioned it before in the intro. Sorry, not kind of pre 5-10 minutes before recording, and I always say it because I think it sets up the interview, for want of a better phrase, of the Steve Jobs. You can't connect dots going forwards, only backwards. What I don't actually tell people, which I should say, is if I'm not mistaken, it's the Stanford commencement speech that he did. So in America, it's a bigger thing than here, where they'll have like someone who, well, he actually did go for a period of time and not really, he didn't graduate. They normally get someone that's graduated to go and speak and kind of commence the people that are graduating like future careers and getting to inspire them. And that's what it came from. There's a few other things, but that's one of the things that's super interesting. In fact, I will go into the other things because they'll probably become relevant. The other one that I can recall, it's on YouTube, it's 15-20 minutes worth watching. He talks about the fact, I think he had pancreatic cancer and then he was cleared from it, eventually I think died from it. But at this point he cleared from it. And it was like, if you're looking yourself in the mirror 2 days in a row, and you're not liking what you're seeing, you got to make a change, which always reminds you like a Michael Jackson song, but it isn't. It's Steve Jobs. So there's that. He talks about the connecting dots. And there's a third thing which escapes me, but it's not relevant for the second. But going to the first connecting dots, like your school education, were you academic? Did you enjoy school? Like, what was the deal back then?
Did I enjoy school? So I was born in Oxford. I think when you say Oxford, it always comes with a certain connotation of affluence.
100%, all guys smart.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone's just, you know, the IQ is in the high hundreds, you know. But it's a lot more varied than that. Like half of my mum's family, you know, does come from that background, and half of it doesn't. And my beginnings were very humble. We went to a local public school, which wasn't far from the council estate that my mum was living on at the time. And it wasn't great, to be honest with you. I've still got some school friends from there, but my mum moved us to the countryside, somewhere called Marsh Bolden, and it was about 60 students for the whole entire primary school. Oh, wow. So very small. That's all the way from year 1 to year 6. And I definitely enjoyed that. I enjoyed being, you know, in the countryside. I enjoyed the different atmosphere that was then, you know, my immediate locality. Going into secondary school, I only did 2 years in the UK, and then I went to Africa, to Ethiopia. Oh, wow. Where my father was working and living at the time.
Where your father, did you say, was working?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, my father was working and living at the time. So I actually did my higher education in Africa.
Wow.
And then I came back. I did a short stint at Ruskin College, doing HR. You know, when you get to a certain age, your mum goes, look, you got to get a degree. This is what you do. And I just kind of jumped into, I remember literally looking at about 3 different options going, all right, that sounds sweet, going into that. So no, I wasn't particularly academic. I did well at school, don't get me wrong. I did well at my A-levels, particularly social sciences. But it wasn't really, it didn't stand out to me. When I was at that age of uni, I remember seeing my peers and thinking, everyone's rushing to find an answer and they haven't done any kind of internal exploration of themselves yet. And I kind of knew, like, innately that it wasn't for me at that time. Regardless of kind of the social pressure. My mum did 2 masters at Oxford Uni, and she's a PhD candidate at the moment. So there was always that pressure to smash uni and become academic. And I've got French family that you know, do economics and banking and all the rest of it. And it's so there was a lot of pressure to be that way.
Do you think the HR thing was any decision based on, like, you're a people's guy, like, you know, maybe managing people might be a thing for you, or it was literally kind of a whim as to why you chose HR?
Do you know, it was the learning and development that appealed to me. If I remember, it's funny, it's not something that I've thought about for a long time. This is probably, I'm 30 now. This was, you know, back at 11 years ago.
That's what I like about these things. You don't think about this.
Yeah, I'm not. It was the learning and development module. I wanted to help people be confident. I think that was a big want that I had at that time. And I thought, maybe if I learn that, then I'll be able to do that. Although I think I've found maybe a way to scratch that itch in a different way later on in life.
So looking at your LinkedIn, I don't know where this figures in time frame. I presume you go to Ruskin. Where is Ruskin? Sorry,
that's in Oxford.
It is in Oxford.
That's in Oxford. Yeah.
So you go there, and then did you complete this degree, or?
No, I did a year. I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it at all. And then I kind of freestyled for a bit. I did a bit of banking at Barclays for a bit, decided I hated that. I was having a very anti-capitalist moment at the time.
Sure.
Forget that, F the system. I'm not going to go corporate. Did a bit of digital marketing, and then kind of what did I
You
end
did
up in?
some retail stuff like
Yeah, I
so.
did. Yeah, did a bit of retail stuff. Correct. Yeah, did some retail
You
stuff.
know,
That
I always say two things about that. One of the kind of moving around and trying to figure things out. I don't think enough people do that. You know, it's looked upon now like, oh, but your CV's not all pretty that you did 3 years here and 7 years here and all the rest of it.
I
For me,
see.
it's like you tried things, like you went, that's not right. Like I prefer to see that in people that I'm looking to employ or whatnot than just I spent 10 years. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, right? As long as the explanation as to why you did what you did, that's cool. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, like chopping and changing that people think it is. I think it's quite the opposite sometimes.
I think as long as it doesn't it's not highlighting a behavioral trait where someone's
Yes,
able to see something through to completion, then I'd say it's definitely not a red flag. And I think even myself hiring people, I kind of try and take things contextual. So I think it's important to understand the story behind why somebody's done that rather
for
than just
sure.
have this blanket rule of you need to spend at least a year or 2 years at each job, and it needs to be congruent to the overall career that you're
True.
focusing on.
Very
I,
true.
I definitely agree. I think there's also a lot to be said for being willing to be a bit more unorthodox.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like anything you can then say on top of that, you pick up more things from various places rather than just like this kind of get dogma, just the same and same people and the same kind of. It's interesting because when it comes to retail, obviously that's a large part of my background, if not most of my background professionally. And I've always thought that national conscription should exist within retail and hospitality. So I think between the age of 16 and 18, you should have to do
That is a
one day.
bold statement. I
Yeah, yeah.
wouldn't say I disagree, but it is a bold
One day a
statement.
week or like,
Elaborate.
yeah. So I just think that there's a few things. So between the age of 16 and 18, I think it would present so when I say national conscription, I mean like you should have to do it. It's paid work, and you can choose where you do it, right? As long as it's retail hospitality. And the reason I say those two sectors particularly is because they're client facing or customer facing. And you know, you got to get there on time, you got to make sure you're presentable, you've got to learn interpersonal skills, and you got to learn when things go wrong. And that could be as simple as you dropped a coffee over someone to the dish this person wanted for their birthdays and whatever it is, like those skills, those soft skills that again we'll come on to in a minute, for me are paramount to the development of anybody. And I think this culture of, oh no, I'm just gonna, I don't need to work. I can just get to university and then do my 3 years, and then I'll get a job at 40K a year in London, the city, or whatever they want to do. Um, you've got zero experience of doing anything, realistically. And saying, oh, I did a Duke of Edinburgh in Wales, like doesn't quite cut it in my book.
No, it doesn't. And I think it's quite funny because what you say there reflects on what I see in society. And my mum and I were speaking about it not so long ago when she came and visited from Oxford, is that nowadays you'll have somebody that, for example, is a physicist and understands some of the most technical and complex, issues in that exist in this world. However, that person might not be able to put up a flat pack cupboard,
Yeah.
or doesn't know how to do, simple wiring of an electric circuit, or plumbing, or how to tie a knot, or
Yep.
these general things that I believe that our parents and our grandparents and generations before kind of understood, that the average person, at least men, let's say, would know how to do part of building a house, for
Yep.
example, would know how to fix a car, would know how, it's we've become so specialized and
Yep.
niche down that I think we've lost a lot of our actual general ability. And
True.
I think, like, when you talk about like having to do catering and hospitality and having to do retail, that what we're saying is that fundamentally, it gives you these people skills and an emotional intelligence that's transferable to everything,
Correct.
and that's just how many business deals have you made that were based on the conversation that you had and your ability to pick up on cues from that
Yep.
particular person that you're dealing with, understanding why that person wants to make that purchase or why that person wants that particular thing, and really being able to delve deep into that, you know, it comes from emotional intelligence and people skills and interpersonal skills. And I feel like we feel that because we might specialize in one particular thing or focus on one particular area in life, that kind of excuses us from understanding, you know, the wider array of things that, you know, make up much of what makes us human, and much of what life has to offer, you know.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, specialists v generalists. Yeah, there has been, I think, in certainly in well, we're the same age period that I've seen. There's been this whole like consultant, be a specialist in like some super specific area, and yeah, and unfortunately, or as is the state of play, that pays better. And as we all know, like people follow carrots. And then, of course, then society gets messed up because it's so specific. And then all of a sudden there's a huge change. Like AI comes in and it's like, oh, all this specialism, like all of a sudden, like, oh, what?
Wiped.
Yeah. I think there was something when I was at Tesco, in the management kind of side, buying side in Wellington City. I remember one of the directors put this video on, which is worth watching, and they redid it, and now they could even redo it again, probably using AI and Canva now. But that's the irony. But it's called What Does It All Mean? And it's showing you like it's mad things, like the amount of information in one edition of the New York Times, like paper copy, is more than someone 200 years ago would see in their entire lifetime. And like the amount of first degree honors students in India is more than the total number of students in America every year. And like all these stats, like, and back to that one about things changing, it was saying if you're doing like a computing degree of some description, like 2 years into your degree, that 2 years is null and void. So like it's pretty interesting how things are. And I think it goes more then down to what we're saying, which is if you have a general set of skills that are transferable, you're adaptable. But if you've been this like expert in this tiny thing, which I think is where people think is what you do, then all of a sudden, like your expertise becomes null and void because AI is the big thing, or whatever can take over. All of a sudden, it's like, you know what I mean? I think I'm going to have to do a burning issues on that. It's quite an interesting.
I think it is definitely a burning issue, and I think what you just said there is like, it's how do you then have, because what I find is, because I've had such a varied background, it makes it a lot easier to connect with many different people. So I was thinking about it the other day, and I was hypothesizing on what really builds connections. And I remember I'd gone to an Aspen Institute conference. It's something we speak about later, but
yep, I've got it on my list.
I asked some of the speakers there. This was at the US Embassy in May, but I asked some of the speakers there, you know, what is there a framework for building authentic relationships? And the response was, well, if it's a framework, then it can't be authentic. Sure. It contradicts the idea of being authentic, but I totally disagree. I think that as humans, in reality, everything that we do is an exchange of value. And I think there are 3 domains of value. I think the first thing is, you know, what does this person value? What are their principles? What is it that they, you know, appreciate and have gratitude for in life? You know, that's the kind of, somebody values integrity, they value heritage. They, you know, there are different values for different people. I think then there's this thing of, you know, how can we exchange value? What do I have to offer this person? Maybe I can connect them with a particular person, or, you know, there's an opportunity that I might be able to bring to the table. And I think when you think of what you can give, actually, you get a lot more from people.
For sure.
I think the third domain of value is what that person values in the future, what it is that they are aspiring to, what it is that they want to accomplish, and where you're able to kind of be a, you know, some type of help or assistance for them to, you know, reach that, or at least help them on their journey. I think those are the 3 domains of value, you know, what a person values in terms of their principles, you know, what you can exchange in terms of values in the interaction that you're having, and then understanding what that person values in the future and whether you're able to help them or assist them, or whether it aligns with what you're aspiring to do as well. You know, those things obviously need to align. But the reason that I say that, you know, people, I think, struggle now to connect with different people when you see that society is so siloed and polarized is because of this lack of different exposure to different people. You know, it's like all the quote unquote nerds chill with the nerds, and that's who their friends are. All the security guys chill with the security guys, all the jewelers are all together. You know, there's no exchange, at least, you know, on a social level a lot of the time, or even career wise. I went to a solicitor networking event. I was literally the only person there who wasn't a solicitor, but I was invited by a friend. And my initial reaction was, why on earth am I going to go to a solicitor's networking event? But when I went there, I enjoyed it. And actually, I found that there were plenty of parallels between what I'm doing right now and what they're in. And, you know, there were opportunities there. And I just think that people kind of there's just not enough mixing, and it's beyond race. That's without even the mention of race or ethnicity.
It's super interesting. Just conversationally, like I was in Marks and Spencer's the other day, and something wasn't scanning right. Girl comes over, like she helps me out, and she's just like starts a conversation, which I thought was unusual to start with. Seriously, you're like, whoa, someone.
Like, I know someone's talking to me. What's
I was like, what's going on here? I'm not ready for this. She's like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, you know, this. The day, you know, I was like, oh, what time do you finish? And then I obviously figure out, based on her age, she's probably a student, right? And I said, oh, you know, what are you studying? And each answer she gave, and this is where it kind of goes backwards almost, was a one-word answer. And she never asked anything about me, right? That person doesn't know from a career standpoint. Do I know a lot of solicitors, lawyers? Of course I do. You know, from just in anything standpoint, too many people now are so standoffish, and it's like, as I said, everything was a one-word answer. What are you studying? Law. Okay. What year are you in? Master's first year. It's like, are you a robot? Like where's the conversation? Like, you know what I mean? And I remember when I used to work in the Market Street store in Manchester, and I ended up running it for a bit and whatnot. But like, when I was on the tills, like wanting to just make your day better, but like I would have conversations with people. Like I would see what they're buying, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Are you cooking this? Like, you know what I mean? So I think a layer on top or aside to what you're saying of people just mixing amongst themselves is people actually just now, with the whole work from home situation, not even mixing, period.
Yes, true.
So like, if you do, like, you stand out so much, and you know what it's like. I know you're married, but you still, I'm sure, go out and you still meet people, right? And like, it's just that the whole social scene, and that's a whole different conversation, has become so peculiar. Everyone's out to gain something, and there's no like, hey, how are you? Like, what are you up to? Like, just the standard. I just find when I was like, I've been going out since I was 15 or so. So I was 18, right? So I use that. So I've been going out 15 years now, which yeah, talking to you about that.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's so good.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about this, but I've been going out for half my life, right? 15 years. And the difference between what it used to be, and it used to just be so casual music, like whatever, like we'd expect. Now it's like this stuffy, like, ooh, what's he wearing? What's she wearing? What watch has she got? And it's like a whole posturing. It's totally changed.
Yes, and I think it's, I feel like if people understood that, and I try to live by this mantra, that humans are the most fascinating beings on
sure, that's why this podcast exists, dude.
On planet Earth, like, humans are the most fascinating people. So actually, you know, in your pursuit for entertainment, your pursuit for fulfillment, so much of it comes from interactions with other
100%
beings. So it's such an irony that, you know, 6 degrees of separation, right? You know, and that exercise was done in the 50s. it was done in the 50s of, oh, you know, well, let's try an exercise, you know, like, let's see if we can contact the King of Sweden, and how we would do that, and how many people are between you and that person that you've never heard of, that you know, or not heard of, or that you know, but you have no direct contact to that person.
Oh, it's way less now. Like when I was
exactly, it is way less now. You have no idea where your next opportunity is coming from. It's funny. I've been to networking events where people have asked, you know, have asked the speaker for tips on networking, and I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, this question always comes up. It's like, you know, if you go to a networking event and you're trying to find somebody that's, you know, that can help you along with your career, or can help you with business prospects, but you're having a conversation that, you know, isn't directly impactful to what you're doing and what you're aiming, how do you cut that conversation off? How do you cut it off? And it's funny because you might be, revelation, like you just said, is by question. It's by layer and layer and layer, right? You unravel these layers of a person. You don't know where that opportunity is coming from. So this attitude that you have to be like a sniffer dog, and you know, straight away, like, so bam, true, like, man. Oh, Charles, I need more contracts.
I don't go. That's why I don't go to these events, because I find it so ridiculous that you may as well like have a bank account sign, and then like, here's what I can, like, you know, what I mean? My name's Charles. Like, unless you're gonna buy a 10 grand watch right now, I don't want to speak to you. That's pretty much what people go in with. And for me, like, I've always been like way above the average in terms of doing this, and I hate the word networking because of the connotation of events, and I'm going to say it because it is what it is. Things like BNI that I personally don't like. I know people have got value out of it, but it hasn't worked for me. And the reason being is these things are too structured. Whereas for me, what you said in terms of the values is absolutely true. And I'm going to have to probably do something on that, because I think it's super interesting. You mentioned it has
to be authentic, though.
And it does. And it's the simplest thing. And it was a joke, but it used to happen, right? When I was in the office in Tesco, I used to literally almost look at the directory, and I'd be like, oh, this person's got a pretty cool role. Let's see what happens. And my boss at the time was like, he had a scoreboard as to the seniority and like how often I would meet the person. Dude, I'm like Champions League level of this, if not World Cup level. Because do you know what it was? Is that I actually care about what the other person's saying. And that is as simple as it becomes. And when it comes to seniority and in corporates and stuff, everyone wipes their ass the same way, right? And if you think of it like that, then you don't have this kind of like weird awkwardness. There's going to be, right? If you're talking to, and I did, the C-suite of Tesco, but like at the same time, it's refreshing for them when you just treat them normally. They're not used to it. They're used to the red carpet being rolled out and yes, sir, three, you know, and all that nonsense. For me, I'm just like, well, what are you doing today, Judith? Like, what's going on? Like, I would end up having, literally, I would walk in 10, 15 minutes around the kind of area, maybe half an hour with one of the guys who turned out to be a super senior director. I then saw him in the gym randomly, not a Tesco gym, and we had this kind of conversation. And one of my best relationships from Tesco came from a coffee. I went to go buy her a coffee. She's just behind me. I just thought it was a nice thing to do. She turned out to be a director on 20 grand a month. I didn't know this. You know what I mean? So I'm on like 15 grand a year at the point. But like, do you know what I mean? And then it turned out she worked at Amazon, and she did a bit in the watch business for Amazon. And all of a sudden, she became a mentor of mine, offering to her a coffee.
Without you looking for...
No, nothing.
The irony of without you looking for that opportunity, it came.
No. And if I was looking for it and sniffing for it, like it's like a sniffer dog, that person knows that because 1,000 people
would smell you out.
Yeah.
Whilst you're sniffing, you'll smell out. You know,
true.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's so counterproductive. You know, this idea that I've not had. So it's funny because it reminds me of my mentors, and I'm massively grateful for them. And I met every single one. I have 3 mentors, and every single one of them, if I'd have known their resume before I spoke to them, it would have probably you know, you put people on a pedestal, don't you? Like you just said. And I think it can be a massive barrier to having a genuine connection because you overthink your conversation, and then there's this whole, you know, expectation that you need to impress this person because you might not ever be able to speak to them again, etc., etc. And as you're speaking, you're just winding yourself up, you're getting more and more anxious. But I connected with all three of those people through having genuine conversation without even knowing who they were. You know, I actually, two of them I met at a networking event, and I had an idea of who one of them was. She'd been VP for Walt Disney, their tech department, for Europe. So, you know, she'd spoken about VR and augmented reality, etc. And I can't remember the question that I asked her, but it had nothing to do with what she had spoken about. It was a far more personal question. You know, it was I think she'd hinted that she was, you know, she was religious or something like that, or you know, she'd actually said that she'd been to Bethlehem or Jerusalem or somewhere like that, right? In faith, pursuit of faith, right?
Okay.
I think I went with that conversation and just totally away from the tech. With James Craig, he was a head of business partnerships in Microsoft for 18 years. You know, not many people have Bill Gates on speed dial, but this man of this caliber was in an old worn trench coat, leaning on the table, with a pint of beer in his hand. And I think we just made eye contact. I was like, how are you? You okay?
So
And we were speaking for ages. And I think, we spoke about so many random things. And I was like, oh, he told me how he traveled through America. He never pointed at what he was doing in America.
Okay.
He traveled through America. And he spoke about the time that they went to Arizona and they went across the desert. And it was at that point that he decided, you know what, he was going to step down from his career and do things more, going to take more of a freelance approach to how he does things. And throughout that conversation, there was no, what can I get from this person? What can I get from this person? What can I get from this person?
Absolutely.
The genuine conversation that led to a genuine connection. I've benefited off massively of both of those people, so I think there's a lot to be said for self-awareness, and actually how do you kind of incorporate that into your business, into your daily interactions, into your family relationships, your intimate relationships, that self-awareness that you're consciously aware when people are in front of you, that you give them your full undivided attention, because that's where meaningful interactions and meaningful outcomes stem from. They stem from meaningful and genuine interactions. And I think most people are quite unconscious of how they deal with people. And it's funny because somebody might be listening to this and saying, well, how does any of this tie into what Charles does for a living or what Tawfeeq does for a living? But it really does.
Absolutely.
It breaks down to client acquisition, it breaks down to employee management.
Yep.
Brand awareness, because you represent your brand. So somebody might have an interaction with you and you not thinking about that conversation, it affects your brand in ways that you wouldn't be able to foresee.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, you don't have to look at from a purely like data point of view. You just look at the reviews we have for the business and they all say the same thing, which is the thing that I've been like from day one, which is exactly the same as your business. It's all about service level. I never, ever, ever talk about us being the best price. It's never mentioned, because there's always someone that's going to undercut you. There's always someone that's going to charge more than you. I
know that far too well.
Yeah.
Of course, 100%, it's true.
So, and that's back to that value thing you said, which stems to your business. Absolutely. Is what is your business value? What does your business represent? And then, once it's, I don't think they even need the mission statement, but a lot of companies do that. but they just have it on the wall and it means nothing. But like if you live and breathe what it is your company is, which is what my company does. And then I was looking, and I should make a video about this another time, but I brought two guys in and it wasn't working right. It wasn't necessarily their fault, but it wasn't, what was happening was not a good reflection upon the company in the way that I wanted it to be. And I say it wasn't really their fault, but it was having an effect that I wasn't happy with where Watch Marketplace was going. And it all stems from, is it doing what I stand for? Is it representing what I stand for? Which is a whole other conversation. How do you get people to embody, which is never going to be 100%, but how do you get them to embody what it is that you're trying to stand for? And that's another conversation. But I'm interested with this time that we got to talk about, because you have slightly mentioned it, that you had a foray into the tech world and how that came to be, and then how you ended up where you are now and how that happened.
Yeah, so so what was I doing? It's probably lockdown, having that existential crisis that I think we
You
all went
were doing a security role, this is at the Ivy.
Yeah, so I was doing I was managing a security team at the Ivy, just as I was doing it's funny, I was doing e-commerce at the time with my brother, and we were doing well, actually.
This is the lifestyle limitless company.
Yeah, correct. Damn, you've really done your research.
Dude, I do this with everything.
Charles, I am impressed. Scarily.
Company house records, you name
I'm
it,
slightly
dude.
scared, but I'm more impressed than I am scared.
I'm pulling money out of your bank account while we speak. This is what this whole thing is.
I'm going to check my balances now.
Big invoice from Watch Marketplace for a watch that's not on your wrist right now.
I swear to you right now, yeah, it all makes sense. You and watches and knowing all the intricate details you do about what you do, it makes
you got to, man.
Say no more, Charles. So yeah, lifestyle limitless. We were doing fitness plans, and it was doing well.
Okay.
And then my brother's a model. He does extremely well. He's done
the good-looking one, then obviously, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I am the ugly brother. I own that most definitely. I do well regardless. But yeah, so he kind of like, so it kind of, it fizzled out because he was busy. I was busy, family life, etc. So then we come into lockdown, and it's like, right, what am I gonna do? Somebody had mentioned like cybersecurity, so I'd looked into cybersecurity. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I didn't really. It was the networking part, the actual wiring of servers, etc. Not getting into all of that. Didn't stick with me. And then I got into software development, so I did a bit of training on that. I had a look into that. Liked it. Worked for QA, which is a tech consultancy, for about a year, coming off the back of lockdown, so like 2021, I'd say. And I kind of just I took the opportunity to aggressively network. It's probably the first time I've ever done that in life, where I've just really I hadn't used LinkedIn up until that point ever. I went to all these networking events. I pushed myself to get out there.
Just for people that are looking or thinking about networking events, like where did you find them? Like, were they just tech related, or what was your approach?
Yeah, I think we're quite privileged and blessed in the North to have quite a good networking community. Okay. I think we've criticized a lot of networking in terms of the finer individual interactions. However,
yes,
I think overall as a city, we do a lot better than a lot of places, and Meetup, I think, is native. I think Meetup is an app that was actually built and developed in the North. So I found a lot on Meetup, a lot on Eventbrite. And I think once you kind of, you go to your first event, you ask people if they're going to any other events, and then it has a snowfall effect, I believe.
Okay.
And I think you kind of, the more that you learn, the more you start to understand deficits that you have perhaps either in your network or in your knowledge base. And then you hopefully you go to networking events that kind of help to bridge that gap of understanding for you.
Yeah. So what was the purpose of you going to these network events during this?
So the purpose at the time was it was more of I'd say it was a self-confidence thing. I think it was, I'd always I'd always been happy to do the behind the scenes stuff. So even within Lifestyle Limitless, I'd be happy to do the operational things. I think that's always kind of been the roles that I've taken. Even though I've gone on to do public speaking, etc. I think at the time I thought it was perhaps beyond me. So my wife was like, look, need to go networking. That's another thing, always having good partners in life.
True.
And my wife pushed me and said, look, go networking. Whatever this sticking point is that you have, go and tackle it. And I think it was Jordan B. Peterson that said, like, go and tackle the dragon in its lair, before it comes out. And it's that thing of, go and whatever it is that's holding you back, going and tackling it. So that's why I went to these networking events. And I found that actually I became more and more confident of opening conversations with people that, you've never met before. And it just became a lot easier. I ended up doing a awareness campaign on digital poverty with Manchester Tech Fest off the back of that. And it's funny because we run a WhatsApp group in QA because we were technically trainees, and we're all studying, and they were like, "Oh, so what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm giving a speech in front of 500 people." And they're like, "What? What do you want? Like, you just started tech with us like 3 months ago." But I just I think it was tackling the self-confidence issue, most definitely, and then tackling saying yes to opportunities that feel bigger than you currently are. And I think it ticked both of those boxes for me. And I think the second one, the latter, saying yes to opportunities that are outside of you, have been what's helped me to scale the business that I'm in now, and to scale any opportunities that I've come across. Is this thing of just that thing of say yes, figure it out on the way down, whilst you're landing.
Agree with that. And so you went from security into tech. What made you go and do your own security?
What made me go back into security? Yes.
Yeah.
So department got made redundant. It was a terrible time in tech. I think
okay.
it was the first time that FANG companies like Alphabet, Facebook, Amazon, etc., didn't take new interns on that year.
Right.
Like 2022, 2020, end of 2021, 2022. And there were like massive cuts across the board. And we specifically, for anybody who's listening, this might be relevant to them, but it was DevOps engineering. So it was cloud infrastructure that I was training in and I was working in. And so, yeah, got made redundant. Yeah, again, I felt like I got a bit of momentum, and then boom, it kind of took the winds out of my sails for a bit. My friend, whilst I'd been in the tech consultancy, was building, quote unquote, a team within a company. And he'd come to me and said, look, I'm bringing all these people to this company, but I've got no equity in what I'm bringing in. There's no referrals. There's not anything. I said, look, it sounds like you're I think the word's entrepreneur, somebody's an internal entrepreneur. I said, but you're not making any money, so you're not actually right now. You're a great worker. Don't get me wrong. I was like, look, like, I was doing this tech thing. I feel like it will come back later on in life anyway. I've got some skills that I can use for myself, but I'm not gonna try and get back into that right now. I need money. That was the reality of it at the time. I think COVID had financially stricken me massively. And I was like, look, let's do it. And it was, I kind of understood from living down south, from being from Oxford, from spending a lot of time in London growing up, and then seeing London later on in life, certain areas that you wouldn't have walked around when we were kids, that now, you can't buy property there because it's so expensive. And that thing of gentrification, I could kind of identify it very clearly in Manchester. I was like, this place is going to be cosmopolitan, and therefore all of the services that are serving this city are going to have to step up, and security is one of them. It's a licensing requirement for most venues that people go to, so you're never going to get away from that. not for a long time anyway. So I kind of understood that like there's an opportunity here. I've seen a gap in the market. I believe that that's the way that the market is going, and that's the approach that we took. You know, I kind of fell back into security for financial needs, but just said, look, I'm gonna take actually use my network in tech, which people be like, how on earth is that transferable? Believe me, it is. People will know people, like we said.
Yep.
Your opportunity doesn't come from one particular place.
And the connecting dots that
Yeah,
again back
connecting the
then, like
dots back, exactly, connecting the dots backwards, you know. So it was at the time, I can't lie, I was like, I'm back in security, this dead end thing. You know, the self-doubt does
of
speak to you.
course, man.
Wrong. Tech just sounds better on paper.
Yeah.
It sounds so much nicer saying, yeah, I'm a software developer, I work
Yeah.
for, you know, Accenture, I do this, I do that. But
Yeah.
in reality, like I've made more now in a short time than I would have in tech for at least 3 to 4 years, you know. So it's kind of I always remind myself there's a proverb in like a Chinese proverb or story, let's say, of
Mhm.
a man who sits and begs outside of a walled city. I always imagine it being on a silk route. You know, you've got caravan trade going in and out of this walled city, and you've got beggars outside. And this guy who pours him tea asks him, you know, have you ever looked in the box that you're sat on? He goes, you know, just pour me my tea, bro. It's a long day, you know, I'm gonna carry on begging, and that's what I'm gonna do. And you know, through whatever event, maybe wear and tear, this box breaks down and it opens and it's full of jewels and you know, riches and all the rest of it. But I think we are that box, you know, you are that box. So it doesn't matter where life takes you, you can still use everything that you've had, those dots connecting backwards, and you can use it in whatever situation you're in. So I had to consciously think at the time, like, look, we're going to make the most of it. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. It doesn't matter what, you know, family perception. Oh, bloody hell, he's doing security again. You know, all those kind of,
For
those
sure.
say of things that go around your head, just kind of nip that in the bud and crack on.
The one thing which probably rounds commercial quite nicely, and I've been looking for this word for a while because and you've alluded to it a little bit, but I can't stand work-life balance as a principle because the word balance, in my opinion, how it's taken in this world is like, you know, I've done 7 hours work, whatever that even is, which then allows me to like slob around for 7 hours. Or like in maybe a nutritional sense, oh, I've had a healthy lunch, whatever that means, which means Domino's for dinner. That's good. That, you know what I mean? So then I came up with like, all right, like a work-life blend, and that kind of works because you know you're changing it up, and like as you do a smoothie, like some days isn't as that. So there's a bit of that, and then like the next level that I'm at, which I think might be the answer, is a harmony, a work-life harmony. Because if you look at what one of the definitions of harmony, it's all about like things being in a line to make each thing better. And the definition is better than I'm alluding to. But you have two sets of twins, right?
I do. I do got
Yeah,
two twins,
two
correct.
sets of twins, and you're 30,
Yes, I'm 30,
and you
yes.
started a new business. I'm just interested
Correct.
to know because listen, because not wasn't going to go down this road, but I think it's important. Like people put every excuse under the sun as to why they can't go and do this, change that, do the other, right? You've gone and done and achieved these things under difficult circumstances, which maybe actually help perpetuate you and give you that sense of purpose to push beyond what most people would, maybe. But I'm just interested to understand, how do you switch off? Where's that harmony? Like all that kind of thing.
Let me lay it bare Monday to Sunday. So, you know, I have decided to go back to uni. I've decided
Okay.
to go to uni. I'm studying environmental science. That's because ultimately, and it's funny because connecting the dots backwards, you'd say, Lord have mercy. I've probably never had somebody sit in front of me that's done so many different things. But when I was at school, in that primary school that was in the countryside, it compounded my love for nature and my love for all things green. I remember memorizing pretty much every bird in the British Isles, where they travel to in the summer, where they come back in the winter, for
Wow.
example.
Wow.
As
Wow.
a child, I always had an encyclopedia to hand. And I've always wanted to do agriculture and environmental science, etc. And when I was in Africa, it was something that the agricultural industry employs, I think, about 85% of people in Africa. So it's always been kind of in the background, but I've always said to myself, it's not a practical thing to pursue. So I've kind of done little things in and around, but never really tackled it directly. So this is me now saying, all right, cool. There'll come a time where I'll sell this company and I'm going to go and tackle food loss prevention. That's what I want to do in the long run. So I do environmental science. That there's a conversation for another day. I'm studying that as a degree.
Wow.
Right. I got a D in chemistry when I was in my A levels. It was a D. I think I got a B in biology. I got an A in geography. So it is, but the chemistry part's very, very challenging, and there's maths as well. So that's about 36 hours of studying that's required for that.
Jeez.
We employ 32 people now. So Monday to Wednesday is studying and having my phone ring. I think you have more WhatsApp messages than me, but it's still
Probably near enough.
there are a lot of WhatsApp messages that I wake up to every morning and kind of going through that, and then juggling with, client requirements can change week to week because, security varies a hell of a lot in terms of what people need. Someone's cat or dog is dead every week. There's always some random thing that pops up.
Yeah.
I take it you can't come to work.
Yeah.
There'll always be that thing. And then, on the weekend, I'll be going to clients and going to venues myself and working as well, and that could be anywhere between 30 to 40 hours. So I probably do an 8-hour week. And then I still, throughout the day, Monday to Sunday, kind of find time to spend at least an hour with the kids. So there is.
Wait, go on. Sorry. It just pause a second.
Yeah. No, all good.
Kids.
It's the weirdest thing to explain, Charles. Yeah, because we tell ourselves that we don't have enough time, right?
Yeah.
And it is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And then life happens where it is sink or swim, and you have to carve out and dig that time out, and somehow you find it.
So true.
It's just kind of like it's not negotiable that I need to have time with my kids. It's not negotiable that I need to spend time on my business. I need to study. So therefore, I find ways to do these things. Most of the people that say there's not enough time in the day, if they look to their screen time, if they have an iPhone, they probably find that there is enough time, And I think I'm massively grateful that I'm in a position where I can do these different things, and all that's required from me is to work hard. I have all these opportunities, but all that's required from me is to work hard and deliver. I think it really is a privilege to be able to work at something that you want to do, where life is far more by your design than it is circumstantial.
Yeah.
I've had periods of time in my life that were far more circumstantial than they are now. I feel a lot more in control of my destiny. And I really am, I'm grateful for that I can decide to take a day off, or I can, I've got certain level of flexibility. I can choose to do environmental science now at the age of 30, say I'm going to go and study my degree, and yet I still have enough income coming in to, look after my family and have those days to study. There's that thing of it being more exhausting not knowing where your living and sustenance is coming from than it is working hard to get it. I genuinely think it is more exhausting being broke and being poor and not having money than it is kind of working your ass off and having the ability to work your ass off to build whatever it is that you want out of it.
my burning issues the week just gone, or whenever people find it, was it was the 50th one, but it was about purpose. And I've seen in my time that I've seen a whole range of people with all sorts of different parts of life, whether it be people I've seen in the hospital, mental health issues, whatever. What I almost always find is when someone's got a strong sense of purpose, whatever that purpose is, like they seem to be in a better spot. You know, it's almost inevitable. Like it's almost like it's not exactly mutually exclusive, but kind of that. Like everything else is at bay. If you got a significant purpose, and back to what you're saying, you've got two sets of twins, you've got to do it. Like you don't have oh, I'm lounging around, like maybe I'll do something. Like that procrastination, that like trying to figure things out is often, like as you say, like more excruciating and whatnot when you've got the actual purpose, and with you've got obviously multiple things going on. It makes a huge difference. It's actually quite ironic, you know, like just round the conversation off, because like this conversation, based on I'm sure how most people would look at you if you're on a door at 20 stories, they would never have a moment, and I'll be the first to say the same thing, right? That there would be this depth of character, this level of conversation. And do you know what if like it's so refreshing to have an opportunity to talk to you and to like understand more of who you are and what you're doing. And I think everyone's guilty of seeing somebody in a uniform or in a certain position and just making presumptions. Oh, he's on the door, therefore this, or oh, they're a doctor, therefore, like not even negative or positive, but like oh, he's a watch dealer, therefore I bet he's got this, or I bet he's only with those people, or I bet he associates with those brands, or etc. etc. And actually, like, and I think this is probably the nutshell of our conversation, actually just having those conversations and seeing where things may lead without any desire for it to get to a certain destination, just for actual, and I think you put it really interestingly, just for entertainment value. Like, let's have a chat. Like, who knows, like you might, even if it's just talking about football, even if it's just talking about fashion, politics, whatever it is, like why does it have to have an end game? Why does it have to have a what can I get out of you, what can you get out of me? Because I didn't even know this, going back to this, and not to my own horn at all, but I was talking to you outside another venue that you were working with, and I just in passing, we were talking for like an hour, and a fellow came up to us, and I was like, "Oh, you know, Taft's great," and that was it. Like it wasn't in any way, shape, or form to promote what you do. And then the next day, I get this message from you, like, "Oh, you may have got to be a business opportunity." Like, what did I do?
I swear, it was the smoothest alley-oop. Honestly, it was just
I was like, "What did I do?" What did I do? But like, but that's the point, isn't it? Like, that might become, I don't know, your biggest contract, for argument's sake. It comes from the most unusual of sources, but it all stems back from, I know what you value. I would trust you 100% with what you do. I know you're the best at what you do because I've seen your work and I think you're the best. And so I will go out on a limb. And if someone was to ask me this, that, and the other, without any need for any gain whatsoever, and as I say, I just did that just naturally, when it wasn't, I don't even remember how it came to be, but it was super organic.
It was
very organic.
Yeah.
I think the fellow was like, "Oh, these guys are super like well dressed." I'm like, "Yeah, they're the best." And like, it wasn't even to try and big you up. It was just like, that was my natural reaction. And back to that organic, how things happen. It's the same with me. I had a situation last week. A fellow bought a watch off me, who I met over in Zurich. The only reason this came to be was because I commented on a watch he was wearing at the when we were both checking in. Then we had a cigar in the evening. Then we had a breakfast, and we kind of tried. And then, however many months later, is like, boom, there's the money. And we're talking a big sum of money, and you're like, he literally said to me, his words were, he's like, and it was reasonable, but he's like, even if you were 10, 15% more, I don't care. Like, I want to work with you. I like how you work. I want to support you. And when you've got clients like that, you know there's no competition. Back to what you were saying.
And that, is so true. And I think that's why, like, this whole conversation is kind of it's a business toolkit as much as a life toolkit as well.
Sure.
Because, like you said, when you have genuine relationships and genuine interactions with people, with potential clients, with current clients as well, it just creates better communication. It creates a better compromise if it's needed, better understanding on both sides of the equation. It creates more inclination to offer you more opportunity as well. If somebody is expanding, that person might want another watch and they're going to come to you. Somebody might want security for an event or for a new venue that they're opening. And I know based off what I've delivered where we currently are with them, and the time and care that I've given them there, I'm fully confident that that relationship will grow and expand and carry on with them to other places. So I think definitely in summary, there's a lot to be said for having authentic interactions with people, not necessarily needing to pluck out a direct benefit from that interaction. And also as well, kind of taking the time to understand who you are as a person, because that's going to help you to understand what it is that you value, and that's going to help to align you with the right people, the people that are going to help you with the opportunities that you want in life. Definitely.
I think you rounded off what has been what you said about there's something to be said. And I've thought about this, and someone mentioned it or somewhere as well, which reignited this, is that I love doing this podcasting thing, right? As much as I love doing the burning issues thing. But for the last kind of probably few months, if I'm honest, I haven't got around to it because I haven't scheduled them, or I've got to the Sunday when I normally record the burning issues, and like life's got in the way and these things, right? And like actually, when you do these things, for me anyway, which is the burning issues vlog that I do in these, I get so much from them. I mean, I've literally written which is rare, by the way, I've written like a page full of notes, like from things that you've said, dude, that's just super interesting. And it gives you energy from something else.
Yes.
So like, I know for a fact it's not why I do it. I'm the only watch dealer that does these things. And there's no like direct benefit of like me doing this, but like it's just part of what I value. It's part of like trying to spread good stuff and like positivity and like show people what's possible. And if you spend time on things where it gives you energy, so like maybe I'm trying to think how you can fit in what you do all week. It's insane. I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, you need to do more. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And it's like it's so inspiring, but like these sorts of things, we're at 8 p.m. on a Monday night. Like we could both, well, you could certainly be at home with kids probably in bed by now, I'd hope. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you know what? I hopefully I'll get to pitch in on a bit of bedtime. But yeah, within the next half.
So and I could be doing I could just be watching YouTube, Netflix right now. But like would I get as much entertainment and as much like value and like energy from this? Like I'm like psyched up to go, dude. Like this is what I love doing. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, again, this comes from like such a unusual place as to how we've both got to this, and that's what I love, man. And like the fact that hopefully like someone can just watch this and go, oh, you know what, like I never thought to just have those conversations or just see where things may go or whatever. But man, you are one fascinating guy. Like I gotta say, like
I appreciate it, man. I know the same about you, Charles, but I think your listeners already know that anyway. But yeah, no, definitely. Thank you very much. I think I hope that I remain fascinated by life myself, I hope that I remain interested in people, fascinated by people, and just forever in awe of inspirational things that are all around us, man. Most definitely.
It's amazing, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Definitely, man. All the best, brother.
Thank you.